Welcome to this explainer. Okay, today we are going to do something incredibly fun. We're going to meticulously deconstruct a really dense, just absolutely visceral piece of text. It's literally only 45 words long. But within those 45 words lies an entire blueprint for a chaotic battlefield scene. We're going to basically put this text under a microscope to see exactly how language can architect a completely cinematic experience.
Take a deep breath with me here, because I want you to actually feel the overwhelming pacing of this source material. Just listen to this. Continuous shot as Roman formation breaks open and soldiers charge forward. Spears thrown in unison, enemy lines collapsing, brutal close combat begins, swords clashing, shields slamming, dynamic camera moving through battlefield chaos, cinematic realism, high detail, dramatic motion blur. Notice how there are literally 0 periods there. No pauses. It establishes this chaotic, overwhelming baseline right out of the gate. The grammar itself forces you to rush forward, mimicking a relentless charge. So to really understand how this magic works, we have to slow real time down. Section 1. The initial Roman charge. Okay, let's dive into this. Let's break this massive, unpunctuated concept into its structural phases. Look at how the author turns what is essentially a run-on sentence into a super clear tactical progression. First, the Roman formation breaks open. We start with this highly disciplined mass, and then, snap, it shatters. That's action. Second, soldiers charge forward. All that potential energy instantly becomes kinetic. Third, spears thrown in unison. It's just a sharp, rhythmic delivery of cause and effect actions. One movement, logically and physically, triggers the next.
So, the crucial point is this exact phrase right here. Spears thrown in unison. Now, you might be wondering, why does this matter so much? Well, because in the architecture of this scene, this synchronized ranged attack is the very last moment of organized discipline structure. The word unison implies control, right? Training, total synchronization. It's the definitive transition point. The exact millisecond those spears leave the soldier's hands, the entire structure of the battlefield shatters completely. It's kind of like the calm, or at least the organization, right before the ultimate storm.
Section 2. Brutal close combat. Suddenly, the distance between the two armies has vanished. Enemy lines collapsing. Think about the immediate consequence of that synchronized spear throw we just talked about. The text absolutely doesn't give us some slow battle of attrition. No, it gives us instant, devastating kinetic payoff. The phrasing of lines collapsing tells us the opposing force isn't just, taking casualties. Their very formation is fundamentally failing. And then the text totally shifts our sensory input. Swords clashing. We've moved from that wide macro point of view of lines collapsing all the way down into the microscopic, violent reality of the individual soldier. We instantly shift to auditory and kinetic sensory details. You can practically hear that sharp, high-pitched ring of metal striking metal right in front of your face. Shields slamming. Notice the relentless driving use of these ing action verbs, collapsing, clashing, slamming. By isolating these specific, highly visceral action verbs, the text perfectly simulates the suffocating battlefield chaos it promised us. There's no time to breathe, absolutely no time to analyze the broader strategy. You are just surrounded by slamming wood and clashing steel. The pacing is rapid, it's brutal, and it's entirely immersive.
Section 3. Cinematic camera and style. Now what's really interesting about this slide is the text completely shifts gears. It doesn't just tell us what is happening anymore, it explicitly tells us how we are supposed to view it. Just look at these specific modifiers: continuous shot, cinematic realism, high detail, dramatic motion blur. These function not as narrative story elements, but as incredibly precise visual instructions. A continuous shot means no cutting away to safety, right? We are locked in real time with the Roman soldiers. Cinematic realism and high detail command actual textural authenticity. You should literally see the mud on the shields and the sweat on the faces. And dramatic motion blur dictates exactly how the speed and violence are physically rendered in the frame. This is a technical blueprint for framing chaos.
Let's slow down for just a second and really look at this definition. A dynamic camera moving through battlefield chaos. This is an active, deeply subjective point of view. By juxtaposing this dynamic camera directly against the brutal close combat we analyzed earlier, the source text guarantees of visceral win action. The observer isn't safely positioned on a hill looking down at the strategy. No way. The observer, the camera itself, is plunging right into the gap where the Roman formation broke open, dodging those thrown spears and just getting knocked around by slamming shields.
And this brilliantly illustrates the dual nature of the source text. On one side, we have the action elements, the charge, the swords, the shields. This is the narrative progression. On the other side, the camera elements, the dynamic camera, the continuous shot, the motion blur, neither works independently here. If you only have the action, well, it's just a list of events. If you only have the camera directions, it's an empty stage. But forced together into one unpunctuated, relentless block of text, they seamlessly combine to build a truly cinematic scene.
Which leaves us with an absolutely fascinating tension embedded right at the end of the text. The source demands both cinematic realism and dramatic motion blur. So I want to leave you with this final provocative thought to reflect on. Does applying dramatic motion blur actually enhance the realism of a battle by mimicking how our own eyes fail to track high-speed violence? Or does visual distortion simply amplify the chaos to make it feel more dramatic? Think about how these words interact the next time you watch a cinematic battle scene. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and hey, keep looking closely at the